Get out of that. Get this screen back up here. Okay, good evening, family, and welcome to the Lppbbsg Primary Purpose Big Book Study Groups 4-step workshop. Up and there we go with the spotlight. Ta-da! So I like to do this little thing before we get started on the 4-step workshop. For myself, why did I find it necessary to do a 4-step when I got to Alcoholics Anonymous? Because when I came in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous, I came in with dragging a whole bunch of this emotional baggage. So I got a couple of little things that have impacted in my life all the way back to childhood. Trish, you got somebody at the door. All the way back to childhood, since we were just talking about childhood homes and stuff. And yeah, there was some emotional baggage in some of those childhood homes as well. But I just kind of like to do this little demonstration, and maybe some of you will be able to relate to it. So, you know, my life has been absolutely filled with many, many broken relationships. And then I get involved with somebody else, and I take all of that brokenness to the next relationship, and so on and so on. And I kept doing that. You know, it's kind of like my first girlfriend that gave me this picture, you know. I just couldn't let go of it because I was so heartbroken and couldn't believe that she would break my heart. And I kept dragging it around with me for years and years into other relationships instead of letting it go or finding the tools to let it go. And then, of course, I have the picture of her, the love of my life, and this was the wife that I married until death did we part. But you know, when I met her, I still had some pictures of other old girlfriends and stuff. And what I didn't realize at the time was that I was causing my wife emotional pain by hanging on to those things. We all have a past, and we get into new relationships, but we have to be careful about how we talk about and use that past, because we don't want to be hurtful to the ones that we're involved with now. And you know, my whole life, everybody in all of these relationships have been trying to put me into a box. And when I got to Alcoholics Anonymous, my soul was empty and my box was full of garbage, full of emotional garbage. So this whole 4-step thing has helped me out a lot. And when you think about relationships, how do most of us often get involved? It's generally something more of a romantic nature. I wasn't attracted to you because you were a doctor, lawyer, or a rocket science. It was probably that first kindling of attraction might have been on a dance floor or something like that, or you know, whatever you were wearing. And it shows that I have a very misguided sense of direction of what really is attractive in a human being. And so, you know, and this is just a plain fact of life. Oftentimes when we get involved with somebody, is we fall into bed real quick and we think that's what love is. And then all of a sudden things start to go south in the bedroom, and then we start searching for other things. And while I might not be out sleeping with other people, I start doing and having behaviors that I'm already emotionally cheating and causing more harm in the relationship in my life. So what do? I go down to the liquor store and I start buying those kind of magazines that require paper covers on them to walk out of the store with them on. And I'm starting to look at these things and I'm starting to get ideas because I want her, or I want you to be her. And it's causing me trouble. And then we come into the age of technology and cell phones and computers and stuff. And all of a sudden I find these apps where I can talk to other people, and I'm living some sort of fantasy illusion, and then of course inappropriate things start happening there as well. And when those inappropriate things start happening there, again, emotionally, I'm cheating in my mind. I'm not being faithful to my marriage vows and so on. Or if I'm not married, just to the relationship in general. And then, we never talk about the elephant in the room. And what's the real elephant in the room? It's my alcoholism. It's my anger. Boy, poor little guy, he's got a messed up ear. And we never talk about that. And then when we do talk about it, it's generally when we're in the middle of an argument. And arguments first off, oftentimes we just shut up. Then maybe it escalates to a little yelling, and sometimes it escalates into a whole lot of other ugliness and domestic violence and so on. I know my first telltale sign is when I pick up your favorite statue and I hurl it across the room. And this poor little guy lost his head in one of those episodes. So, what am I doing? I'm lashing out when I do that. I'm trying to hurt you because I'm hurt. I don't know why I'm hurt, but I'm hurt. So I'm trying to lash out against you. So what all of these relationships have done for me over the years, break out my favorite t-shirt here, after decades of doing this, I end up with the hole in the soul. And I come in and to Alcoholics Anonymous, and I'm just broken from what life has had to offer me. And my favorite way to wear this t-shirt is kind of like this, by the way, just because it's simpler, but that's what happens as we go. And oftentimes, folks, that brokenness starts at home with mom and dad, with grandma and grandpa or siblings, and we end up broken. And when none of that stuff works, because I'm so in my alcoholism, and now I'm in my depression, and maybe I'm even having suicidal and homicidal thoughts as a result of what life has to offer. And when nothing else works, I get out the old smelly blanket that I have drugged through my whole life, and I wrap it around myself, and it becomes this place of warmth and comfort and security, because it's what I know. So, and the blanket will be back later because we're not quite done with it. But that's just a bit of some visual demonstration of why it's necessary for us to do a 4-step. Because the truth is, I believe that we can completely heal from all of the emotional baggage that life has given us and that we have given us into as we come into Alcoholics Anonymous. So thank you very much for sitting through that, and we will now get on with the business of our 4-step workshop. Hi, Trish.
Hey, Jamie.
Uh-oh, you got those black little things in your... There you go.
You good now?
Yeah, my screen was showing those little tape things blocking the slide.
Yeah, I hate those when they show up. But anyway, hey everybody, good evening. Thanks for coming. I'm Trish, I'm an alcoholic, and welcome to the Lppbbsg Primary Purpose Big Book Study 4th Step Workshop. That's a tongue twister. And you can find recordings of this and past workshops that we've done on our website in the upper right hand corner, Lppbbsg.org, and feel free to take a screenshot of that. And we do record this, but it is recorded in audio only, so there's no faces, no names, comments afterwards. We do keep the recorder running because a lot of times those have a lot of good content for people who aren't here and want to come and listen later. But again, no names, no faces. And that way we get to share the message with other people out there who are following our page. So, welcome.
We need to add our YouTube channel to that page too, by the way. Just saying, let's open this meeting with the set-aside prayer, please. God, please set aside everything I think I know about myself. The 12 steps, the big book, the meetings, my disease. But most especially, God, please set aside everything I think I know about you, so that I may have an open mind and a new experience with all these things. Please let me see the truth.
Yeah, I think I have adding that on the list. Haven't gotten to it yet.
From last time, huh?
For the time before. In our preamble, Alcoholics Anonymous is a fellowship of men and women who share their experience, strength, and hope with each other, that they may solve their common problem and help others to recover from alcoholism. The only requirement for membership is a desire to stop drinking. There are no dues or fees for AA membership. We are self-supporting through our own contributions. AA is not allied with any sect, denomination, politics, organization, or institution, does not wish to engage in any controversy, neither endorses nor opposes any causes. Our primary purpose is to stay sober and to help other alcoholics to achieve sobriety.
Let me get the door here. Please keep in mind that this is a workshop. We will be discussing some real-life examples of what could be difficult things for some. While questions are encouraged for clarification, we do not expect specific discussion to encroach on topics that should be saved for your sponsor or for a one-on-one conversation. Feel free to take notes as we go along. This workshop should not be used as a platform to start sharing your fifth step.
And please have a notebook and pen handy to write down the slide number. I'm circling it now from the lower right-hand corner of each slide. And that way we can take questions at the end. But if you have a question on a specific slide, we can refer back to that slide for further clarification or for further understanding.
And before we get into the four-step workshop, we're going to talk about our triangle in Alcoholics Anonymous. One of the things you often hear, because people read the triangle from left to right, is unity, service, and recovery. But the way the triangle really reads is recovery, unity, and service. So, recovery in the mind, found in the big book, from pages XXV to page 164, is a set of 12 spiritual principles that are the steps. Have you continued to actively take the 12-step process outlined in the big book? And unity, the body, found in the fellowship, a set of 12 spiritual principles found in the 12 traditions. Do you have a group that you are committed to? Is your group committed to the 12 steps, and does your group live by the 12 traditions? And service and spirit, found in carrying the message, set of 12 spiritual principles found in the 12 concepts. This applies to the group level all the way through the GSO structure. And are you working with others and taking them through the 12 steps? So we have 36 spiritual principles to be able to live by in Alcoholics Anonymous.
You know, Jamie, I wonder if sometimes people's recovery falls apart because they're so focused on the unity and the service, they forget about the recovery, which is the foundation.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So while this is a fourth step workshop, it's always a good practice to review the foundation of steps 1, 2, and 3 before beginning. Therefore, we will be reviewing some hot spots to be sure that the foundation is intact leading into step 4.
Through the information we read in the doctor's opinion, along with the first 44 pages, we are given the information we need to self-diagnose our alcoholism. Only 51 pages in all lead us to this decision. This is step 1.
And step 1 from Alcoholics Anonymous, page 30. we learned that we had to fully concede to our innermost selves that we were alcoholics. This is the first step in recovery. The delusion that we are like other people, or presently may be, has to be smashed.
Bang! Love that little hammer. And from page 60, being convinced, we're going to take a look at the ABCs just a little differently than we do in the book. A, am I convinced that I am an alcoholic and that my life is unmanageable? Step 1. B, am I convinced that no human power could have relieved my alcoholism? Still step 1. And C, am I convinced that there is a power greater than my own power that can and will relieve me of my problem? A and B, step 2.
And referring back to the chapter We Agnostics, and this is coming from pages 50 and 51. And this chapter is a pathway of helping us let go of old ideas and old beliefs, and opening my heart and mind to finding new ideas and new beliefs. So from the book, this happened soon after they wholeheartedly met a few simple requirements. Once confused and baffled by the seeming futility of existence, they show the underlying reasons why they were making heavy going of life. Leaving aside the drink question, they will tell why living was so unsatisfactory. They show how the change came over them.
And we're going to read A Life Based on Self-Will from the book, pages 60 through 62, only we're going to read it in the first person. And here's the thing, folks. There are many parts of the book that when I read it in the first person, what happens is I become part of that first 100, and I'm finding myself in the book as I do that, rather than I'm reading about what they did, because it all applies to me too. So, the writer, actor, and director, if my arrangements would only stay put, if only people would do as I wished, the show would be great. Everybody, including me, would be pleased. Life would be wonderful. In trying to make these arrangements, I may sometimes be quite virtuous. I may be kind, considerate, patient, generous, even modest and self-sacrificing. On the other hand, I may be mean, egotistical, selfish, and dishonest. But as with most humans, I am more likely to have varied traits.
What usually happens? The show doesn't come off very well. I begin to think life doesn't treat me right. I decide to exert myself more. I become, on the next occasion, still more demanding or gracious, as the case may be. Still, the play does not suit me. Admitting I may be somewhat at fault, I am sure that other people are more to blame. I become angry, indignant, self-pitying. What is my basic trouble? Am I not really a self-seeker, even when trying to be kind? Am I not a victim of the delusion that I can wrest satisfaction and happiness out of this world if only I manage well? Is it not evident to all the rest of the players that these are the things I want? And do not my actions make each of them wish to retaliate, snatching all they can get out of the show? Am I not, even in my best moments, a producer of confusion rather than harmony?
Sorry, Dochi's scratching at food. He's going out to get Chinese food for all of us. I am self-centered, egocentric as people like to call it nowadays. I'm like the retired businessman who lolls in the Florida sunshine in the winter, complaining about the sad state of the nation. I am like the minister who sighs over the sins of the 20th century. I am like politicians and reformers who are sure all would be utopia if the rest of the world would only behave. I am like the outlaw safecracker who thinks society has wronged him. I am like the alcoholic who has lost all and is locked up. Whatever my protestations, am I not mostly concerned with myself, my resentments, my self-pity? Selfishness and self-centeredness. That, I think, is the root of my troubles, driven by 100 forms of fear, self-delusion, self-seeking, and self-pity. I step on the toes of my fellows and they retaliate. Sometimes they hurt me seemingly without provocation, but I invariably find at some point in the past I have made decisions based on self, which later placed me in a position to be hurt.
So my troubles, I think, are basically of my own making. They arise out of myself, and I am an extreme example of self-will run riot, though I usually don't think so. Above everything, I must be rid of this selfishness. I must, or it kills me. God makes that possible, and there often seems no way of entirely getting rid of self without his aid. I've had moral and philosophical convictions galore, but I could not live up to them even though I would have liked to. Neither could I reduce my self-centeredness much by wishing or trying on my own power. I had to have God's help. This is the how and why of it. First of all, I had to quit playing God. It didn't work. Next, I decided that hereafter, in this drama of life, God was going to be my director. He is the principal, I am his agent. He is the father, and I am his child. Most good ideas are simple, and this concept was the keystone of the new and triumphant arch through which I will pass to freedom.
Now that the book has given us ideas that our problem is based in self, we need a pathway towards finding out what our own selfishness, self-centeredness, fears, and delusions are. This comes from the process of the four-step inventory. The first three columns are centered around our resentments and how they affected us. Everything after that looks at our own thoughts, actions, and patterns. This is a discovery process of who we have become.
So, first of all, I had to quit playing God. And why? It didn't work.
Which brings us to our third step prayer from page 63 of our big book. God, I offer myself to thee, to build with me and to do with me as thou wilt. Relieve me of the bondage of self, that I may better do thy will. Take away my difficulties, that victory over them may bear witness to those I would help of thy power, thy love, and thy way of life. May I do thy will always. So as I look at this prayer, especially when I get to the point where I ask God to relieve me of the bondage of self so that I can better do his will and to take away my difficulties, is it possible that some of that stuff that we read on page 60 through 62 are the root of what my troubles are, of what the bondage of myself is? So maybe through this prayer, that's some of the stuff I'm asking him to help me with. I'd like to mention here at this point that notice there is no amen at the end of the third step prayer. The discovery process of steps 4, 5, and then the willingness process of step 6, and the asking God to remove the defects of character in step 7. At the end of step 7, the amen will come. So it will be the closing of this prayer that's starting. And what it does is it starts what I like to refer to as the cycle of 5. 5 what? 5 steps. 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7.
So the three aspects of a relationship with God, and this is from page 62. The actor and the director. A director runs the show. The actor listens for direction. On my own, have I failed to provide what I need to be okay? And am I ready to make the decision that hereafter God will direct my life? The principal and the agent. An agent represents who the principal or employer would have them be. Have I failed to be the person I would have me be? And failed to make others who I need them to be? Am I ready to make the decision that hereafter I will represent who God would have me be? And father-child. A child trusts their father can provide what they are incapable of doing on their own. Have I failed in directing my life on my own power? Am I ready to make the decision that hereafter I will trust that God will provide what I need?
Okay, I love this one. There are many four-step workbooks available. However, the fourth step was never meant to be a check-the-box inventory. The instructions in the big book always say, referring to our list again, which we have written out in detail. So a stack of pencils and a notebook are really what the workbook is. There's several people, Hazelden and many treatment centers, that actually put workbooks out, but so many of them are check the box and people go down them, yeah, that's me, that's me, that's me, without any written specifics through the discovery process. So this is how we go through the discovery process.
Before I begin and throughout the entire process, I'm going to pray something like this. God, please help me see the truth about the things in myself which have been blocking me from you.
And we're going to go to page 65 that shows the three columns. In this case, we're just going to show you the first two for right now. And it's Bill's example of what the things that we look for. First two columns, work each column from top to bottom, list all the names and then the causes. And why do we do that? Because if I write down a name, the cause, and how it affected me, after a couple of people, I'll say, oh no, this hurts too much. I am not doing this, and we get stuck. So we list all the names first. I'm resentful at Mr. Brown, Mrs. Jones, my employer, my wife. And then we list the cause of why we're resentful. Mr. Brown, his attention to my wife, told my wife of my mistress, and Brown may get my job at the office. Mrs. Jones, she's a nut, she snubbed me, she committed her husband for drinking, he's my friend and she's a gossip. My employer, unreasonable, unjust, overbearing, threatens to fire me. Excuse me, folks. For drinking and padding my expense account. And my wife misunderstands and nags me. She likes Brown and wants the house put in her name.
And just something quick to look at that we'll be focusing on a little bit later. There's 4 people here that I'm resentful at. But when I look at the causes column, there's 11 separate resentments. There's 3 for Mr. Brown, 3 for Mrs. Jones, 2 for my employer, and 3 for my wife. So when I look at them in chunks like that, it's really manageable and not just a big, huge wad of I'm resentful at everybody. Because I'm looking specifically at what am I really resentful at. And once I finish these 2 columns, again going top to bottom, I'm going to move into that 3rd column. And the 3rd column are the 7 areas of self which begin on page 64 in our book. And those are self-esteem, pride, ambition, security, personal relations, sex relations, and pocketbook. So I'm going to look at Mr. Brown, the causes. What are my resentments? And what do these affect in my life? They affect sex relations and self-esteem. And there in parentheses, I'm going to put the word fear because self-esteem and fear are really tied closely together. Moving down to Mrs. Jones. I look at her. I look at the 3 resentments I have with her. What is this effect of those 7 areas of self? It affects my personal relations and it affects my self-esteem. And again, their fear is all wrapped up in that. Moving down to my employer and the 2 resentments I have there, self-esteem and fear, and security. And then the final one, my wife, the 3 different resentments there, that affects my pride, my personal and sex relations, and security, and there's that fear again.
I'm sorry, all 3 of those columns are lies, I tell you, lies.
But those are my feelings.
But feelings aren't facts.
Oh. Feelings aren't facts, but they are valid. And we need to find out where they come from and then decide what are we going to do with them.
There are people who will look at the chart on page 65 and say this is the fourth step. However, there is more work to do. The full directions start on page 65 and end on page 71. Page 72 states, we have been trying to get a new attitude and a new relationship with our Creator and to discover the obstacles in our path. Causes and conditions from page 64. Without these other columns, I am missing most of the discovery process. The following slides are the rest of the process.
And another thought, without these other columns, all I'm doing is looking at the other person. Because those first three columns are still looking more at the other person and why I'm resentful at them. Now I'm moving into me. So before each fourth column, and this comes from pages 66 and 67, I want to consider in paragraph form, how have I done the things I've resented in column 2 to the person I listed in column 1 and or others? And I'll rephrase that in a minute. And that comes from page 66 in paragraph 4, where it says, this was our course. We realized that the people who wronged us were perhaps spiritually sick, like ourselves. In other words, how often did I do the same thing I'm mad at you for doing to you or to somebody else? And after considering this realization, I say this fourth step prayer from page 67. This is a sick person like myself. How can I be helpful to them? God save me from being angry. Thy will be done. Jamie, you want to add to that?
Yeah. So here in the fourth step prayer, while it doesn't say it in the book, I honestly believe that when I say this is a sick person like myself, how can I be helpful to them? It instills the seed of forgiveness in my heart, because it is literally impossible to be resentful or hateful towards someone and be helpful simultaneously. And the God save me from being angry prayer also instills the seed of forgiveness in my heart. And what'll happen is the rest of the process will water and fertilize those seeds so that those seeds will produce fruit in my life. I can tell you at the end of the day, forgiveness is always my pathway to freedom.
So, this page and the next page are copies of worksheets that we came up with. And if you're interested in having a copy, just stick your email in the chat and can get our workbooks out to you at the time that we're done. And we'll send you what you're looking at now, which is an example page. And it's what we just looked at. Only the first three names because we ran out of space. Mr. Brown, Mrs. Jones, employer, and the resentment for why I'm mad at them. And then on the right-hand side, the same form, but it's empty. And that form you can print out as many times as you need to fill out your list and to list out what your resentments are.
The 7 areas of self. The third column focuses on the 7 areas of self. These are found on pages 64 through 65 in the big book. Our focus will be on self-esteem, pride, ambition, security, personal relations, sex relations, and pocketbook. I ask myself, how do my resentments affect me in these areas of my life? Keep in mind, sex relations has nothing to do with this act of sex here. Rather, the focus is on male-female, or in today's world, same-sex couples, relationships, or relationship with the partner of your choice. I could go a lot of places with that, but I won't. While pride is not listed in these pages, it is included in the 7 deadly sins, which are discussed in the 12 and 12, step 4, page 48. It also ties very closely with self-esteem and gives me a different perspective on looking at myself, so that's why we've included it. The 7 deadly sins are pride, greed, lust, anger, gluttony, envy, and sloth. And we forgot to tell you, you guys were free to hold up your camera and take a picture of any of these slides and or screenshot them. So if you want to do that, you're welcome to, and we can go back to the other slides if necessary.
So what we're looking at here is what we refer to as the 4th column page. But instead of being a column, we give it its own page. Because I know for me, the first time I was doing it, when I ran out of room, I figured that meant I was done writing. I didn't have to do any more. And by putting this all on its own page, I'm not going to run out of room until I'm done writing. So just as a reminder, the 7 areas of self are up in the upper left-hand corner in the blue on this page. Self-esteem, pride, ambition, security, personal relations, sex relations, and pocketbook. I'm going to use 1 page for each resentment, not 1 page per person. So if we go back to the example from the chart in the book, some of those 4 people had 3 resentments each, and I think it was the employer had 2 resentments. So this particular one is an example using column 3, using the 7 areas of self, how it should look when it's completed. And in the upper right hand corner, we're looking at Mr. Brown and the first resentment, his attention to my wife. Only focusing on the 1 resentment. I'm going to deal with the other ones on a separate piece of paper when this one's done. So on the top of this and every page, I want to write, God, please let me see the truth. I want to invite God into the process so that I can see what's blocking me from Him. In my instructions, this is the effects smile. I'm keeping columns 1 and 2 in mind while writing the 3rd column. And it's referencing page 65, paragraph 3, where it says, we considered it carefully. Look at the 3rd column and consider the opposite of each sentence that I write down to let the inventory reveal what my fears are behind each of the 7 areas of self. And the first of the 7 areas of self is self-esteem. And we define that by how do I see or how do I feel about myself? What is the role I have assigned myself in this relationship? Most of the sentences are going to start with I am. So for example, I am the best husband she could have. Or the opposite of that, I am the worst breadwinner there is. And then what fears go along with that? The fear of not being good enough. The fear possibly of somebody stealing my wife. And then pride. And pride we define as how I think others see or feel about me. What role have I assigned myself in others' lives? And sentences will start with others should or others should not. For example, others should not spend so much attention to my wife. And the fears here, the fear of being alone and the fear of abandonment.
And moving on through, hang on, gotta get the door here. Moving on through the 7 areas of self. Ambition, what do I want to happen here? Sentences start with I want. I want to be, the example is, I want a healthy, happy relationship. Or I want to be left alone, damn it. What are the fears associated with that? Being alone, losing everything, security. What do I need to be okay here? Sentences start with I need blank to be okay. Example, I need my wife to love and respect me. I need Brown to respect my marriage. Identify the fear. Being disrespected, being unlovable. Personal relationships. my deep-seated beliefs of how this relationship is supposed to look. Example, wives trust their husbands. Friends should respect me, my marriage, and my family. Identify the fear, not being accepted and not being respected. Sex relations, my deep-seated beliefs of how real men and women are supposed to be. Sentences start with a real man or a real woman. And the example, real men don't pursue other men's wives. Pocketbook, affects my finances. Sentences start with no one should or shouldn't. The examples of that are others should not go into my wallet without my permission. No one should go into my phone without my permission. Brown should not ask my wife out to dinner and then ask her to pay for it. And we identify the fear there with financial security. So I'm going to touch on just a couple of these. One is the sex relationships. When we're children, where do we, and here again it's got nothing to do with the act of sex itself, but where do we get the example of how men and women act in relationships? We get it from mom and dad, grandma and grandpa, uncles and aunts, and so on. Sometimes we see very healthy, loving relationships, and other times we see very sick and abusive relationships as well. I mean, we can run the gamut in it, right? So maybe from the time we have been little children, those things that we have seen, that's what we've grown up with. Well, this is how I'm supposed to act. It's the way Mama acted, or the way Granny acted, or whatever. And I want to move on to Pocketbook for a second. My wife used to tell me all the time, well, go get that out of my purse. And I would bring her purse to her and let her get out of it. Because what's in her purse is none of my business. Because if I pull out a note and all of a sudden it's got John Michael Henry's phone number on it, I'm going to be questioning her, asking her who John Michael Henry is, and it could be a very innocent thing. Could be a co-worker, could be somebody that she knew from school as a kid, you know, that she's known all her life, and it's just really not my business unless it's something that comes in between us on her part. There's another reason for not letting people into my phone, and it's not that I'm trying to hide anything, but think about it. How many of us do banking and PayPal and Venmo and all of these things in our online banking on our phones today? If my phone's on the table and you pick it up and you Venmo yourself $500 out of my checking account, that's not very appropriate. So it really is a matter of financial security, and we just kind of like to point that out.
So again, just like in the first page, here is an example. What we just read will be on the example page, the front part of the workbook that we send you. And then the back will be the same thing but blank. And on white paper, it'll all be on white paper, not on yellow. So if you print it off, it doesn't kill your printer ink on the first shot. So that you can look at the example side by side as you're filling in your own paperwork and your own things, your resentments, 7 areas of self. So you can refer back and forth on, how do I fill this in? What do I say? What do I do? You have the example right there, so you can print off both and look at both while you're working on it.
Go back to that for just a second, Trish. The other thing is on the example pages, folks, there will be like 14 pages that come to you. So you have an example page through each part of the process. The other page, the one that we send to you that you can print out, is very much a generic page, but you can fill it out for any situation. Thank you.
So now the fourth column worksheet, and this is where I'm going to start recognizing and discovering my defects of character and my shortcomings. The directions start on page 67 in paragraph 2 of the big book. And on this one, I'm going to use 1 page per individual, not 1 page per resentment. So do all the resentment pages and then start working on this one. And I'm going to resolutely look for the harms that I have done to the others and list where I am to blame. This will also then be the foundation for my 8th step list. This form can also be used, but you may need to modify it for yourself just a little bit for institutions. And why we do this? Because it says on page 68, I continue to recognize my own fears. And then the direction for the fear inventory is found on page 68.
And this is an example of the 4-step column page. Should look like this when completed. And this can be done in phrases. It doesn't have to be an autobiography or full sentences, just bullet points, especially if you have a good memory. Here's what I would say. If you got a resentment that you've been carrying for the last 25 or 30 years, you probably have a really good memory. So bullet points are plenty sufficient here. And again, at the top of every page, God, please let me see the truth about myself. The realization of how I have done the things I've resented in column 2 to the person I listed in column 1 and or others. So here's the way I like to put this. You did this to me, so I'm doing this to you, right? Payback. I've turned on my get even machine with those people. So I asked myself some specific questions. Where had I been self-seeking? Look around the whole resentment. What did I do? Where was I to blame? My selfish actions or activities? Who did I affect? Who else did I pull into this drama? I placed blame. I acted out. I called your boss to tattle. I said I was going out with friends, but really I was going out to get laid. Selfishness. What were my selfish thinking while I was doing the things above, the self-seeking actions? My selfish attitudes were, I demanded to get my own way. I was filing for divorce papers in my mind while we were in bed. I had it all planned out. You were going to pay. I'd cut you off. You know, it's very interesting because I'm just going to take one bullet point out there. I demanded to get my own way. How many of us have literally put other people through hell, controlling them and manipulating and being a narcissist and gaslighting other people to get what we want or barter for what we want? Maybe we have used that bargaining chip of, well, I'll give you money so you can go to the mall or whatever it may be. So we are great manipulators, and this is how we go through the discovery process of that.
Okay, moving on. Where had I been dishonest? And these were the lies that I was telling me that resulted in the selfish thinking that then led to the self-seeking behaviors. Where was I in delusion? I could find somebody better. You would never be good enough. You didn't really care about me or our family. And where had I been afraid? What were the fears that drove the lies or the delusions? I was afraid. Why? I was afraid because I would be alone even though I didn't want you. I was afraid the children wouldn't have their other parent. I was afraid I wouldn't be able to pay the bills and that we would be homeless. I feared for my safety and for retaliation. The above fears drive the dishonesty that result in the selfish attitude behind the self-seeking actions. So they're all related and they all feed each other.
This is an example of what the fourth column should look like when completed. And there again, it can be done in phrases, not full sentences. Consider if there are any other fears that should be on the fear list. Consider the opposite of each fear if it applies and add it to the list. Don't just look at the negative, look for the positive as well. I fear being alone or meeting another abusive partner. I fear being homeless. I fear having to move back in with my parents. I fear losing my job for the lies I told when I was out. I fear my truth. I fear being successful. I fear having too many friends. And then look for the harms. Do I see the harm that I have caused? Look around the resentment. Parents, friends, employers, innocent bystanders, friends I complained to who had nothing to do with the situation. Have I harmed my spouse and my children with my lies? Have I harmed my boss by not showing up for work? Have I harmed my relationship with other family members? I have harmed my credit and financial status due to my selfish actions. I have harmed my friendships by complaining about my spouse to them. Stay on that slide for just a second, Trish. You know, folks, some of this stuff is uncomfortable to look at. But if it's our truth, it's our truth. And the only way I know how to be free and to be able to live in the solution is by the discovery process of the truth. And it gives me a pathway to move forward and come into the light so I don't have to live that way anymore. Okay, Trish.
So the fear inventory. Jamie, you want to talk a little bit about this first?
Oh, yeah. The blanket, huh? Okay, yep, absolutely. So, we're going to get out the old smelly blanket here again. And, you know, folks, we get paralyzed by fear all the time, right? And most people just, I've known a lot of people to just put fear, oh, it's fear, and just write the word fear down without defining what the fear is and on their fourth step. And if I can't define what the fear is, then fear can paralyze me and I'm terrified of everything. So what we do is we take and we throw fear over everything like a blanket or like it's fog. You know, whoops, got a little hung up on the chair and we throw it over the stuffed dog. I'm afraid of the stuffed dog, whatever it is. But eventually what happens is we become so paralyzed in that fear, we put the old smelly blanket again and wrap ourselves on it. And then when that's not good enough, we completely cover ourselves up in the fear and try and hide from it. I have learned in my life that trying to hide from the truth and reality doesn't change what the truth and reality is. So when I go through this process, and again, it allows me to see why I have the fear, then I can begin to start living in the solution so that I can end up outgrowing the fear. Yeah, we missed that one the last time. The slide, yes. And this is your slide or my slide?
I think somehow we got backwards, but I'll take it.
Okay.
That way, favorite. So the fear inventory. First, we're going to read the big book from page 67 at the third paragraph, starting with notice the word fear. And we're going to read all the way to page 68, the third paragraph, where it ends with outgrow fears. Then I'm going to list all my fears. I'm going to make a graph, columns and rows. Or use the fear inventory template that we came up with. And we're going to focus just on the first column. Go back through the inventory, find all the fears you wrote down and list them down in a column, one right underneath the other. But don't duplicate. If you have something more than once, just write it down one time. And then number 3, why do I have this fear? Look around each fear. And the next slide will show you how to follow what we call the trail of fears by looking at the fears hidden behind each fear. And this comes from page 68, where it says, we reviewed our fears thoroughly. We put them on paper, even though we had no resentment in connection with them. We asked ourselves why we had them. And wasn't it because self-reliance failed us? That one's yours.
Okay. Funny, it seems to have shrunk. Example of underlying fears. And like Trish said, this is called the Trail of Fears. And I absolutely love this. And we never look at fear this way, so it's part of the discovery process. I fear not being good enough. If I'm not good enough, I fear I'll be unwanted. I fear being unwanted. If I'm unwanted, I fear being alone. I fear being alone because I fear the emotional pain of being alone. I fear sitting in the emotional pain. If I sit in the pain long enough, I fear I'll drink again. I fear drinking. For me, drinking is to die. I fear dying because I fear the unknown. I don't know what dying really means. I fear the unknown because I fear there is no God. And I fear there is no God, so I repeatedly trust self-reliance, even though I fear self-reliance fails me. But wasn't I trying to kill myself anyway? Is this alcoholic insanity? Is this how I should think the drink through? Am I setting myself up for a drink when I'm drowning in the fear?
Now we're going to look at this in a little bit of a different format, just so that you can see how our template works. So in that first column, the fear that I found in my inventory, I fear not being good enough. And that was always a huge one for me growing up. What's the fear behind that? I fear not being good enough because really I fear I'm going to be unwanted if I'm not good enough. What's the fear behind being unwanted? If you don't want me, I'm going to be alone. What's the fear behind being alone? The fear of being in that emotional pain of being alone. And what's the fear behind the emotional pain? The fear that I'm going to drink again. And what's the fear of drinking again? The fear of death, leading into the fear of the unknown and the fear that there is no God. This is just one example of the trail of fears. Each one of us will need to follow the trail ourselves with our own fears to identify what our fears are in this trail. And our example further on, we'll look at some repeated fears, and we can use these patterns in our inventory.
Now, let's talk about sex. Sex inventory and sex ideal from our big book from pages 68 through 69. Now about sex. Many of us have needed an overhauling there. But above all, we tried to be sensible on this question. It is so easy to get way off track. Here we find human opinions running to extremes. Absurd extremes, perhaps. One set of voices cries that sex is the lower lust of our lower nature and a base necessity of procreation. Then we have the voices who cry for sex and more sex, who bewail the institution of marriage, who think that most of the troubles of the race are traceable to sex causes. They think we do not have enough of it, or it's not the right kind. They see its significance everywhere. One school would allow man no flavor for his fare, and the other would have us all on a striped pepper diet. We want to stay out of this controversy. We do not want to be the arbiter of anyone's sex conduct. We all have sex problems. We'd hardly be human if we didn't. What can we do about them? We reviewed our own conduct over the past years. Where had we been? And these are specific questions that we ask in this review. Where had we been selfish, dishonest, or inconsiderate? Whom had we hurt? Did we unjustifiably arouse jealousy, suspicion, or bitterness? Where were we at fault? What should we have done instead? We got all this down on paper and looked at it. And that's why this is not a check the box kind of inventory.
So the following are the directions for the sex inventory in question form, taken right out of the book from pages 68 and 69. And like all the other pages, we always ask God to show us what we need to see before getting started. So first, we read the big book from page 68
I got it.
the fourth paragraph, now about sex, to page 70, the second paragraph, where it says would bring heartache. Second, we pray and make a list of the relationships in our life. Third, determine what can be done. Write a brief history of each relationship, including motives for getting involved, specific sex conduct, major points in the relationship, and how the relationship ended, or how it is now.
I review my conduct and I look at each relationship and answer the following questions, and there's 9 of them here. Where had I been selfish? Where had I been dishonest? Where had I been inconsiderate? Whom did I hurt, including those we brought into our drama, including the innocent bystanders? Did I arouse jealousy? Did I arouse suspicion? Did I arouse bitterness? Where was I at fault? What should I have done instead? The answer to the last question is never. I shouldn't have gotten involved, because I can't change the past. I did get involved, and it now has become an experience of my life. Refer to, instead of what should I have done or how should I have behaved in the relationship. Make sure you are especially complete with this answer, since it will be used later when writing my sex ideal.
In writing my sex ideal, from pages 69 to 70. In this way, we tried to shape a sane and sound ideal for our future sex life. We subjected each relation to this test. Was it selfish or not? We asked God to mold our ideals and help us to live up to them. We remembered always that our sex powers were God-given and therefore good, neither to be used lightly or selfishly, nor to be despised and loathed. Whatever our ideal turns out to be, we must be willing to go toward it. We must be willing to make amends where we have done harm, provided that we do not bring about still more harm in so doing. In other words, we treat sex as we would any other problem. In meditation, we ask God what we should do about each specific matter. The right answer will come if we want it. God alone can judge our sex situation. Counsel with persons is often desirable, but we let God be the final judge. We realize that some people are as fanatical about sex as others are loose. We avoid hysterical thinking or advice.
Suppose we fall short of the chosen ideal. We got somebody at the door, Trish, and stumble. Does this mean we are going to get drunk? Some people tell us so, but that is only a half-truth. It depends on us and our motives. If we are sorry for what we have done and have an honest desire to let God take us to better things, we believe we will be forgiven and will have learned our lesson. If we are not sorry and our conduct continues to harm others, we are quite sure to drink. We are not theorizing. These are the facts of our experience. To sum up about sex, we earnestly pray for the right ideal, for guidance in each questionable situation, for sanity and for the strength to do the right thing. If sex is very troublesome, we throw ourselves harder into helping others. We think of their needs and work for them. It takes us out of ourselves. It quiets the imperious urge when to yield would mean heartache. The reading continues through the end of the chapter on page 71, encouraging us to review our work and then move forward towards amends. It also encourages us to continue to align ourselves with God so that He can remove whatever self-will has blocked us from Him.
So now the following slides are a real working example of a fourth step inventory. It follows the first person in column 1 all the way from first resentment through all 4 columns, discovery along the trail of fears, and ending with the sex inventory and sex ideal. It takes us through the entire inventory process starting on page 65 to the end of page 71 and completes step 4 on this one resentment. And we started doing this on what could be a real inventory item rather than using the possible fictitious item that Bill has in the book. And it does make it a lot more relatable for some people.
And sometimes a little uncomfortable, and we apologize for that, but let's face it, folks, all of us have had uncomfortable things in our life, and it is part of our life, and it's those things that we need to look at. So this is a real working example of an actual resentment, starting with the first name of the resentment. And again, at the top of the page, God, please let me see the truth about who I am resentful at. This will be column 1 and column 2 of the big book. Make the list of people you have a resentment against, and then list each resentment per person. In this case, it's Dad. And notice how we took the typing out of it and we put kind of a handwritten script in there to make it look like an inventory. He abandoned our family and left us with nothing and nowhere to go. Use the following pages to continue with 1 page per resentment. Multiple resentments would mean multiple pages per person. A little earlier, when we went back to Mr. Brown and Mrs. Jones and all of that, there was 3 and 4 resentments. So each one of those individual resentments is broken down one by one. And the reason being, anybody ever cook spaghetti and all the noodles stick together in the pot and you can't get them apart? What we're doing with this resentment this way is we're pulling it out one noodle at a time and separating it. And the reason for that is because when it comes to forgiveness, if we can forgive one thing at a time and we can forgive the little things, it makes it much easier to let go of that one big thing we're hanging on to.
So, just for a reminder, in the upper left-hand corner are the 7 areas of self. Self-esteem, pride, ambition, security, personal relations, sex relations, and pocketbook. And this is a real working example of an actual resentment using the 7 areas of self. I am resentful at my father. I'm resentful at him because he abandoned our family and left us with nothing and nowhere to go. This affects my self-esteem. I am not good enough for him. He loved my brother more. And the fears that could be associated with that. The fear of not being good enough, the fear of being alone, and the fear of abandonment. This affects my pride. No father should be angry or violent to a 3-year-old. Fathers shouldn't leave their sons. And the fears there, the fear of anger, violence, being unlovable, and abandonment.
This affects my ambition. I want my dad back. I want to be loved by my dad, and I want my dad to be a role model. The fear associated with that are abandonment, not having a good role model, not having a strong father presence in my life. This affects my security. I need to feel safe to be okay. I need to feel loved to be okay. I need to have shelter and food to be okay. The fears associated with that are homelessness, hunger, being hurt, alone, emotional pain, and being unlovable. This affects my personal relations. Real men don't leave their families. Real men support their families. Fear associated with that of being alone, not knowing how to treat others. This affects my sex relations. Real men don't bring strange people into their homes to have sex with their families and then leave to go have sex somewhere else. The fear associated with that is abandonment, sexual abuse, maybe molestation, not being safe, fear of not knowing what a healthy relationship looks like. And this affects my pocketbook. Others should not threaten my home, food, security, utilities, finances. The fears associated with that are homelessness, abandonment, going hungry, not being able to pay my bills. Notice the repeated fears. This will be explained on another page in the fear inventory.
In the fourth column, where I'm now finding my patterns, my defects of character, and my shortcomings. And again at the top, God, please let me see the truth. And the realization, did I repeat or develop the same behaviors that I resented in column 2 to the person that I listed in column 1? Or, if you hurt me, did I turn around and hurt you right back? Where had I been self-seeking? I acted out to get my own way. I put unreasonable demands on my mother, father, and other family members. I knew emotional drama would always get me attention. I blamed you for my problems. Where had I been selfish? I didn't care what others had to sacrifice to please me. I constantly demanded attention. When I didn't get the attention, I accused others of not loving me. Where had I been dishonest? I would always tell lies. I would steal. If I got in trouble, I would blame others. I had been so dishonest for so long that I couldn't see what the real truth was. The biggest tragedy I see now is I was lying to me.
Where had I been afraid? I was afraid of being caught in my lies. I was afraid I wouldn't be loved because of my lies. I was afraid I'd always be alone and not wanted by anyone. The above fears drive the delusions that result in the attitude behind the actions. Consider if there are any other fears on the list, and consider the opposite of each fear if it applies and add it to the list. I had fear of abandonment, or fear of staying in a toxic relationship, fear of being alone, or filling my life with the wrong people, fear of too many people in my life, or fear of being invisible to others, staying in a bad relationship, or not being financially stable on my own. So, the thing about these fears, folks, is they are all a discovery process. We're just giving you examples of what they could look like. And if you are struggling with something as you go through this process, you're welcome to call me or Trish, and we will help you walk through the process. No one has to do this alone. A sponsor that just says, do your damn 4-step and get it over with, probably is not giving you the loving guidance that you need, but someone who will take the questions and help you see the things, especially when you struggle or get stuck. That's what we're here for.
One thing I want to mention on this page, where it talks about I had the fear of the abandonment or the fear of staying in a toxic relationship. The sentence above says, consider the opposite of each fear, and if it applies, add it to the list. So it's not necessarily, I had this fear or I had that one. I might have both. But the or is really kind of not a one or the other, but the two sides of the same coin. I could have both fears. I can have the fear of abandonment and the fear of staying in a toxic relationship, but they're kind of opposites of each other. And the next one, the fear of being alone or filling my life with the wrong people, again, they could be opposite fears, one the opposite of the other. It's not necessarily an either or that I write on my paper. They both may apply. But it's just one more way of looking at and expanding what are my fears. If I have a fear of abandonment, why? Because I have that fear of a toxic relationship. I have that fear of having the wrong people in my life. Look at the whole fear. Look all around it, top to bottom, side to side. And here is our trail of fears. And this one's expanded.
So it looks complicated, folks, but it's really not. And Trisha's about to explain it to you because she does it so well.
Thanks, Jamie. Next time you get to do it.
Oh, this one makes me dizzy.
So, the very first column, again, reading top to bottom, just like our chart on page 59, are all of the fears that I found as I was doing the inventory. The fear of not being good enough, the fear of being alone, the fear of abandonment, anger, violence towards me, going hungry, being unlovable, not having a role model, being homeless. The list goes on. I'm not going to read all of them. We'll be here all night. Once we list all the fears in that first column, but writing them only once, I'm not going to write the same fear multiple times, then, just like the chart, then I'm going to start going side to side or left to right. So the top one is the same example we saw back in the beginning. I fear not being good enough. And why do I fear not being good enough? Because I fear I'm going to be unwanted. Why do I fear I'll be unwanted? It's because I fear being alone. Why do I fear being alone? Because I don't want to be in that emotional pain. I fear that I'm going to sit in that emotional pain, I'm going to get stuck in it, and I'm never going to get out. Why do I fear sitting in that emotional pain? Because I'm going to drink again if I get stuck in there. Why do I fear drinking? Because it's going to lead me to death or insanity. Why do I fear death or insanity? Because it's unknown. I don't know what's going to happen. And why do I fear the unknown? Because I'm afraid there's no God. Can't really go much further than that. So that column's done. So now I'm going to go down to row 2. And the very first thing I see is I fear being alone. But being alone is in the third column in the top. I've already followed that one all the way to the end. So those pretty red X's just mean stop, I did this already. So I don't have to duplicate my work. You can leave empty boxes in there because there's no point duplicating the same work over and over. So now I'm going to go down to row 3, the abandonment. Why do I fear the abandonment, being abandoned? It's kind of like being alone because I fear being alone. I don't want to be by myself. It's uncomfortable. And there again, the first 3 rows, all of them somehow include that fear of being alone. And guess what, folks? 3 times is a pattern. So when I bring this all to my sponsor with my 5th step, I can say, hey, look, sponsor, look what I found. I don't like being alone. I'm afraid of it. And that can open a discussion with my sponsor. Maybe, where does that come from? Why do I have this fear? Maybe I could spend a little bit of time in prayer and reflect on it myself. But recognizing that one of my big fears, because a lot of these, when you look at them, they're kind of little. Well, one of my big ones, because it keeps repeating over and over, is being alone. Coming down to the next row, the fear of anger, the fear of being angry. Why do I have the fear of anger? Because it's an unpredictable emotion. Why do I have that fear? Because I don't know what I'm capable of doing when I'm angry. Frankly, I do, and I don't really like what I do when if I get to that point of anger. Why am I afraid of the fact that I don't know what I'm capable of? Because it leads me into that emotional pain. And emotional pain is all the way up in that same column in that first row. Another pattern, another time that I've seen that. Because if I go down one more, and then I'm going to stop, I'm not going to read the whole thing. The fear of violence towards me. Why do I have this fear? Because I have a fear against being hurt. Why do I have a fear against being hurt? Because I fear that emotional pain. So I've now only gone through five rows. 2 times, 2 different fears have come up 3 times. Something I need to take a look at. Because even though there's a whole bunch of fears listed in those squares, those 2 have come up a lot. That's a pattern. And if I'm looking for my patterns, and then I'm going back to my sponsor so I can discuss this, that's a pattern I get to discuss with my sponsor. And then together with God, we can investigate, where's this come from? How can I get through this, get over this, walk around it? How can I find a solution for this in my life? That's the word I was looking for.
That S word, solution.
Yes.
And here again, this is a real working example of a sex inventory. The inventory is based on a list made from our history of relationships from page 69. This is not continuing the work on column 1. This is an inventory of our own conduct in relationships, not based on relationships. So again, top of each page, God, please let me see the truth about my conduct in relationships. And we write the name and the relationship, and then we write a brief history of the relationship. What were my motives for getting involved? He or she sure was cute. He or she sure was friendly. His or her smile sucked me in and made me melt. And then my specific conduct in the relationship has been, my specific conduct was totally self-seeking so I could feel better about myself. Others commented on how cute my boyfriend or girlfriend was. I want to touch on something there. My specific conduct was totally self-seeking so that I could feel better about myself. How many of us look to others for our self-esteem and how we feel? And if you'll pump up my ego a little bit and make me feel better about myself. Narcissists are really good at that. They'll pump us up and then they'll turn around 2 seconds later and tear us down. So we have to be careful with that. And when we look for that out of other people, are we making that person our higher power? How many times do we come into Alcoholics Anonymous and get in a relationship with somebody and all of a sudden God falls to the wayside because now we have this person in our life and we're making them more important than our relationship with God? Okay, Trish.
So the major points that came up in the relationship are, I don't play well with others. I always want my own way, especially sexually motivated. I want control in every situation, whether it's a sexual situation or not. I would do whatever it took to keep you from leaving me. We would fight over spending time with my family at the holidays. Religion and politics would always lead to more fighting, sometimes to more beatings. How did it end? Or how is it now? I walked away in anger because you didn't do what I wanted. Or I acted out in my behavior so that you would leave. That way I wasn't the bad one for leaving. But either way, the relationship on both of our parts was so sick and toxic that leaving was a means of survival. And just a footnote or an extra thought, after the process of taking the steps and making amends, some of these relationships have healed and have become healthy friendships. The important part is that we've taken a look at and taken responsibility for our own part.
Stay right there. I want to touch on that footnote. So, 40 plus years ago, I was in a relationship and engaged to a very lovely young lady. But both of us had so much brokenness in our lives, and especially with my alcoholism, because I was definitely a heavy drinker. I did a lot of damage in that relationship. But because of sobriety, because of the amends process, we became the dearest of friends. And she was struggling with God, and because of my faith and my relationship with God, it led her back to a relationship with God and a relationship with Jesus. She passed away about 3 months ago at 63 years old. But it was a blessing to not have unfinished business with her and to be able to heal. And through that amends, both of us did so much healing and growing together as friends. So while there has been damage, it doesn't mean that there can't be healing. Thanks, Trish.
So the sex inventory worksheet. Look at each relationship and answer the 9 questions from page 69. Where had I been selfish? Where was I concerned only with myself? I wanted sex all the time. Or, I never wanted sex. I was demanding. When I didn't want sex, I pushed you away or rejected you. I demanded unhealthy or unreasonable sex. 2. Where had I been dishonest, deceptive, or fraudulent? I said you were the only one, but you weren't. I said I was going to work early, but I was really stopping off to see my boyfriend first. 3. Where had I been inconsiderate, disregard for others? I didn't consider your feelings. I didn't consider your plans when I decided to stay late at the office and go to see my boyfriend.
And continuing with the 9 questions, whom did I hurt? Look around the relationship. I hurt my spouse. I hurt our children. I hurt my girlfriend or boyfriend's children. I hurt extended family members. I hurt my relationship at work when they caught me in my lies. How did I arouse jealousy? I constantly openly flirted with others in front of my wife. I flirted with my friends' wives in front of them. How did I arouse suspicions? Doubt about my honesty. I lied about where I was going and when I'd be home. I'd constantly take phone calls and text when I was at home. I would call from her house with her parrot squawking in the background and couldn't figure out how you knew I was there. How did I arouse bitterness, deep resentments? I left our family gatherings to go see her family instead. I paid her rent and neglected our family. I lashed out in anger, always defensive. But she needs me. Where was I at fault? I put my family second to hers and their needs.
What should I have done instead? And don't write, not gotten involved in the first place. What should my behavior in the relationship have been? Make sure you are especially explicit about this one, because we'll be referring back to this list for writing the sexual ideal. I should have put my family first. I should have been honorable and faithful, financially and emotionally supporting my family. I should have been kind, loving, and tolerant. I should have taken care of others' needs before mine. I should have prayed and asked for God's help. And harms, write any specific harm that comes while writing. The realization that I caused deep emotional wounds in my family that may never be repaired. Many of the things I did could be considered abusive or narcissistic. In my experience, I have caused unknown and sometimes irreversible damage to others' lives. And a prayer: God, I ask you help me to mold what the ideal relationship should be in my life, that I may be able to live by that ideal and live in a healthy relationship with others. Amen.
Hang on just a second, Trish. So in that harms thing that Trish just read, I can tell you in my experience in being a young married man, I did so much damage in my relationship with my first wife that when we split up, I did not have my daughter in my life for 32 years. That harmed my daughter seriously. And it was a set of circumstances, partially my fault, but things I didn't have control over as well. What my point is while my daughter and I have a relationship for probably the last 17 years, she still hurts from that early childhood damage. There again, that emotional baggage. And my hopes and prayers are someday that she will find the pathway to healing. I don't know that we'll ever have the relationship that a father and daughter should, but I know that I'm willing, and I'm willing to continue to help her in any way find that pathway. Thank you, Trish. My slide. You read.
Okay.
You read the last one,
I did.
didn't you? Oh no, I didn't.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Your slide.
Somehow we got backwards, but it's all good.
More than once tonight.
You can have it if you want it.
No, you go right ahead.
Rock, paper, scissors. Now that we have followed the instructions and taken a look at ourselves and our conduct, let us now turn to page 69, paragraphs 3 and 4, and refer to the instructions in finding our sexual ideal. In this way, we tried to shape a sane and sound ideal for our future sex life. We subjected each relation to this test. Was it selfish or not? We asked God to mold our ideals and to help us live up to them. We remembered always that our sex powers were God-given and therefore good, neither to be used lightly or selfishly, nor despised or loathed. Whatever our ideal turns out to be, we must be willing to grow toward it. We must be willing to make amends where we have done harm, provided we do not bring about still more harm in so doing. In other words, we treat sex as we would any other problem. In meditation, we ask God what we should do about each specific matter. The right answer will come if we want it. And when we send out the workbook, the sex ideal page is a blank piece of paper. Because it's your ideal. I can't write it for you. You can't write it for me. So you get a blank piece of paper and to ask God, what should this look like? And then start writing.
By the way we are reading tonight, you and I can tell we're both very overtired. There are 12 steps and 12 traditions for recovery. There are 11 chapters in our book. Is it possible that the chapter 12 in your book will be your story? So how does it read? Finding yourself through this inventory could be the beginning of your chapter 12. It is now up to you to write your chapter 12.
And a fifth step note. The bottom of page 74 to the top of page 75 gives us the directions on how to choose who is to hear our fifth step. Its suggestion is that we choose someone that will keep our confidentiality. This could be a priest, minister, or a rabbi, or a counselor, people who are bound by confidentiality by law. However, experience has taught us of the value of taking this step with another alcoholic, or sponsorship. We believe that the advantage to this is the experience of another alcoholic knows where to direct us next through the process of recovery. We recommend that you prayerfully ask God to bring the right person into your life to help through this process.
We hope that you will continue to join us for our bi-monthly workshop, as this work is only a beginning into the truth about ourselves. It is our experience that when people return month after month with new questions, we all grow in effectiveness and understanding. We continue to ask God to mold us into the people He would have us be, so that we can help others to find their truth. Yours in service with love, Lppbbsg. And that's our 4-step workshop, folks. So now we are open to comments, questions that any of you may have. I know that there's a couple of you who have done your 4-step this way since you have been with us. By all means, please feel free to share. You can either raise your little paw on, there you go, Darnice. You got that virtual hand. Come on in, my friend.
Wow, that was awesome. Darnice Alcoholic. That was just, amazing how you guys broke everything down. So I did put my email in there, and then the Trish, you're gonna send so you're gonna send those all those papers of how to go about, because the way I'm doing it is just a tad bit different, but I like how you're putting the prayer there, before you even break it down. One thing I did not do I did a little bit different. You said the resentments are broken out separate, and I really need that. It's very important, and I see why. So I'm waiting for that information. I'm gonna go and print all of that. I needed this so much. It's helped me to understand it a lot better than I was all over the place. So this is wonderful. Now, one last question. This workshop goes, I know Jamie sent me the link and all that. Is it every other month, or how is it?
Yes. So the next the next time we will have it will be in April. But the first Monday of the month, same ID, same password, we do our foundations meeting. So we alternate those 2 meetings and do each of them 6 times a year, and that is a phenomenal meeting as well. And and Trish just put her phone number in the chat for you as well.
And it will be in the email.
Okay, thanks, Trish. Thank you all. This is awesome. I've sat in on a couple of your other ones that Jamie has sent me, and I love them all. This one's all of them are amazing, but this one really helped me. I was waiting. Like, I even text Jamie and said, hey, I saw that your group was having a workshop. Have you ever went to it? And he's like, yeah, all of them are good. And then yesterday, I was like, okay, I got to put a reminder. And then he texts me and remind me. So that's my angel.
Is it odd or is it God? And here again, my friend, if you struggle with any of it, Trish works during the day. I'm currently off work. So if you're struggling with any of it, don't hesitate to send me a text, and we can call or we can Zoom. I can open this back up, or whatever we need to do.
I appreciate you guys. This is such a blessing. You have no idea. This weekend I was really kind of struggling with it. So this was right on time. I thank you guys again for giving me this information.
Thank you. We find that the simplicity of all of it is really the solution, and when it's broken down into the simple form, and the whole 4-step is only 7 pages in the big book.
Yeah.
That's all
Yeah.
it is. So we just went into a little deeper detail. So thank you for being here, my friend.
Yes, thank you. Like I said, it didn't break it down like you guys did. I'm 21, so I really need it broken down.
I absolutely get it. I absolutely get it. Um, we are glad to have you here, and don't ever hesitate.
I won't.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Uh,
Thanks again.
you're welcome. Lisa, would you like to share a little bit of your experience having done the 4-step this way? See, you knew that was coming, didn't you?
No, I was gonna say something anyway. Um, going back over
Who
it,
are you? Who are you?
I'm Lisa, and I'm an alcoholic. Um, yeah, I love this. I remember when I first started doing it, and it really is simple, and it's so great the way we do it, but I was so jumbled and blocked that it was really tough to understand. But that was me. That was up here. And, tonight I'm screen sharing, and I got a few of the, I have them on paper from last year, but I screenshot a few of them, and something I realized that in my struggles yesterday, I had a lot of fear going on. And I'm going to look deeper into that when I get off here. Tremendous fear of some stupid stuff going on in my life, and I was off the wall, and so I got a little bit of writing to do tonight, and I really love how you break everything down, and I remember that trail of fears, and that looked a lot easier to see tonight too, but boy, when I first started, like I said, being so blocked and stuck in that emotional baggage and just things I buried, and I just could not see it. And, I'm so grateful for you guys, help me see so much all the time. And, I'm grateful I came on tonight. It's still helping me. It's going to continue to help me through everything. Thanks again.
Well, you are welcome, and we love you. Here's the thing. While we get introduced to doing a fear inventory this way in the 4-step, here's the thing. What if I did my 4-step 30 years ago and I'm hit with fear today? I can still use this same fear inventory process to recognize what the problems are in my life so that I can move forward in the process of recovery and heal. And it goes back to something that we say in our foundations meeting, using that example of going out to the car and the car won't start. Oh, how appropriate, huh, Lisa? And the car won't start. I can sit there and bitch about the car not starting all day long, and it does nothing for me. So I open up the hood, I look under the hood, I see that the battery cable is corroded. Now I know what the problem is, but that still doesn't fix my problem. I need to take the battery cable off, go to the parts store, buy a new battery cable, put it on, and put the key in, and I am on my way. My car's moving down the road. And that's how fear does us as well, is it absolutely paralyzes that.
I want to touch again on the fears. real quick. I spent years paralyzed in fear.
Yep.
And when I found this when I was introduced to this way of doing the fourth step, and I fell in love with this fears template, because I can list out 10, 15, 20 different little bitty fears going on in my life, and they all seem big and huge. But when I look at what's underneath, no matter what the fear is that I think I'm feeling, from my experience of doing this through the first time, I know my fears usually boil down to one of four.
Yeah.
So if I have a run-in with somebody at work, I don't go through she's going to go to the principal's office, I'm going to get called to the principal's office, I'm going to have a talk, I'm going to get fired, follow all the way down. I know it's just, she's questioning what I'm doing. And I know what I'm doing. I don't have to be afraid because she thinks I should do something else. Because nobody else thinks that, just her. So when I get wrapped up in the fears of whatever it is, I can usually jump to those 4 or 5 big ones of what it usually is. And it's like, that's what it is. And once I recognize it, and I know what the solution, how to get out of it, usually prayer first and then some sort of action, and then I'm on my way. And I'm not sitting there scratching my head, sitting in the quicksand. That's all.
Yeah,
Well, hi, Larry. Hi,
hey,
Larry. What's your
how
name,
you
Larry?
doing? I'm Larry, and I'm a recovered alcoholic, not cured, but one day at a time. I did place in the chat that I wanted a copy, but I thought you already have my email, so I didn't put my email. So anyway, okay. I've been through this 4th step. This is the 3rd time that I've been here through the 4th step. I came through to learn how y'all did it, and it has really helped me through my 10th, 11th, and 12th step, and how I inventory my life from, now, when I look at my stuff now that I need to identify, and write it down and look at it. So it helps me to do that. But I brought a sponsee last time, and we sat down and we did the first 2 columns together. We sat down and spent, I don't know, a couple of hours or so, and just we wrote out, what he could come up for the first 2 columns, and he had a pretty good list, and I told them to, and I don't know if I did this right or not, but I said, now, because he worked swing shift, he had to leave, and he works swing shift, and I said, go on home, and I want you to list now what this, what they did, not or how this made you feel, I guess, whatever. Of the 3rd column, and I guess I thought that would that he got that, but I noticed he was slow walking it real hard, and I couldn't figure it out. I got one. I got a couple, this is just hard. He kept telling me this is just hard. So I, I, I had him. We need to get together. Come and let's look at what's going on. And what he was doing is each person he was doing column 3 and 4 on it, and it was wearing them out. You were talking about doing, if you go all the way across, columns 1, 2, 3, and 4. Well, when he was listing how it made him feel, and then going his part in it, that was wearing him out emotionally. He couldn't take doing both those things at once, and he didn't want to do all that feeling, at the same time. And so, I can really see the importance of just going down the column, staying in the lane, not jumping over to the next column, because emotionally it's going to drain. And so when I finally got him into the right lane, he started going down the list a lot quicker, really, and I'd ask him, "Do you get that?" "Yeah, I got about 15 done last night, 10 done last night." So he and now, he's on column 4. So it really helps to stay in that lane, and we're getting together Saturday, and I'm going to look at what he has. We're going to talk about each one of them, and I have seen this work, but you got to do it in the right order. You got to do it in the right way. I wish I had this when I went and did my 4th step. I didn't. I probably did a lot harder time, and I went through a lot tougher emotional stress. It took me longer to heal because I didn't have something like this, a tool to work with. That's all I got.
Thanks, Larry. Nancy.
I'm about to say something, not alcoholic. Thank you so much for doing this. I've been to this workshop, this particular four-step workshop a few times. And today it's kind of like hitting me more into personal things. Like I'm trying to see how, because sometimes I don't know how I'm feeling. I mean, I know I feel fine, but just like fine, okay, no, nothing. Not like specific. I am angry, I'm sad, I'm lonely, I'm this and that. Because I don't say those, because I figure if I say I'm lonely, then I'm going to be sad. And if I'm sad, then I'm going to be feeling sorry for myself. So basically, I just like don't, you know, don't worry about it, and I don't have to think it, and then just go around my days. But I do need to feel those things. I do need to understand those feelings, and this WhatsApp, it's so thorough that it's like every specific, every little things that go through my head, it's coming out of the book of this workshop. And I mean, I've done the steps a few times, but never this thorough, and I am looking forward to starting to do this. And I think it's gonna open up some things in me that I've always been afraid to like doing the traditions and other, and yeah, I think it's time that I need to start doing something different, and only you guys can show me that. I mean, I have a lot of meetings, I go to a lot of meetings, and stuff like that. But this is for me. It's like soul searching. The big book, Primal Purpose. It's soul searching for me, and I need to die because I've been kind of like, oh, there's something's missing in my life, and it's not, I thought it was God's missing in my life, in my spirituality, but it's not. It's something else. It's Nancy inside that learns to allow God and ask people for help. So God can make me, I don't know, just have a better relationship with people and my God and everything else in my life. I was thinking, my kids are not, I'm not even like, I mean, I know they love me and everything, but they don't like calling me or talking to me or, it's like, hey, hi mom, and that's it. Nothing big conversations and stuff, and I would like to live a better life, but something different. And yeah, I think I talked too much already. Thank you so much for letting me talk.
Thank you, Nancy. Glad you're here. Trish, you got something you want to say?
I did already.
Um,
You want me to say more?
for a second.
Oh, okay. Um, the first time I came to this workshop as a participant, and I was blown away. Because, like we said in the workshop, there are some people who think that the chart on page 59 is all that there is to the fourth step, and I was one of them. Because at the time I had, I'm going to say sponsorship by name, but not a whole lot of book work. And so when I was ready to do my fourth step, I really felt like I was on my own. I was sitting on my bed. I had the big book, the 12 and 12, the Al-Anon book, the Hazelton book, somebody else's book, and just got so overwhelmed, and I didn't know what it is I was supposed to do. So I filled out the chart, because I'm a picture person. When I buy put the bookcase together, I don't read the words, I look at the pictures. So I said, here's a picture, that's what I'm going to do. And I never read the words to realize that I missed a whole lot of stuff. But then once I got into the book and once I experienced this workshop and realized there's a whole lot more there. Because like I said in the beginning, those first 3 columns are really just looking at the other person pointing fingers. I never got to the point of turning it around and looking back at me and how it affected me and how who I was then became who I am now. And the easy answer to that is who I was then to who I am now is a direct result of taking the step the way that it's written in the book. All those pages, not just the one. And continuing to look at who I am now, and all these different aspects. And, I don't necessarily have to go back and do, I don't have to do a whole fourth step, because, I live in an area where a lot of people are like, the fourth step is a one and done. Once I do it, I don't have to do it again. And in some cases that's true, but in some cases it's not, because there's always things that come up in my life, either something from the past that needs to have a fourth step done on it because I never did, or a circumstance today that a quick 10th step isn't going to cut it, I need more. And then the fourth step comes into play with that too. So there's always more work, more digging, more looking at me, not looking at you, in order to find out who I am and where it is that I can grow and where does God need me to grow. And then stepping up and starting, and as a facilitator, it's like there's a whole lot more that I'm learning too, because yeah, there's a script that we read and you read it with us, but there's a whole lot of other stuff that we interject that's not in the script, and learning how to phrase that, when to phrase it, how to phrase it, and then putting that real life 4-step together at the end. I mean, we both added bits and pieces of ourselves into it. And there were things that came up in there that, you know, I had never talked about a whole lot before. But I recognized that they needed to be said. So the 4th step is what helped me to realize that those secrets I was never going to talk about and I was going to take to my grave is now something I can sit and have a conversation with somebody over coffee. Because the 4th step has made me okay with who I was, what happened, and has brought me to where I am now. And I'm okay. There's nothing anybody can hold over my head anymore. Back to you.
Here.
Nice
I'm
try
gonna try
this over here.
Doesn't work from 700 miles away. Hi family, my name is Jamie, very grateful recovered alcoholic. And yes, this meeting goes long, but it is a workshop. And workshops are not hour-long meetings, at least not as a general rule. I'm going to give you a little history on this particular workshop. My partner, Rick Walsh, who the good Lord took home, 4 years ago, Trish? Yeah, 4 years ago in November. And he was my partner in the Big Book study. Gave us this workshop, and when the first time he presented it, there was probably only about 20 slides, and he touched on a lot of things, and we used some of those original slides. But he also had brain cancer at the time, and he was doing the best that he could to present it to us. And he and I talked, and I told him we will continue with this. So he gave Trish and I the foundation for all of this, and Trish and I have literally spent hundreds of hours in our other room putting it all together and making sure that it's all right, and going over and proofreading things and everything. And the reason is because we want to give everybody the tools to be able to do an effective 4th step the first time and be able to let go of so much of that emotional baggage. So I'm guessing I was about 31 years sober. And while I did a very effective 4th step, I had never done it in this fashion. So as we went through the process of doing this, it made me look at so much of my life and review and everything, and which is why we decided to do the real live working resentment that was worked through, because we figured that would be more impactful to our audience in today's life, in today's world. And yeah, we talk about some uncomfortable things, right? But the truth is, sexual abuse, childhood sexual abuse are all part of so many of the lives of people who come to Alcoholics Anonymous. Abandonment and all of these things. So that's why we do it. Here's the beautiful thing about Alcoholics Anonymous. We comfort the uncomfortable, and we make the comfortable uncomfortable sometimes. And I think the only reason that we get uncomfortable in Alcoholics Anonymous is because we have come back to a place where maybe we're suffering from untreated alcoholism because we're not staying in the process. So the best way for me to stay comfortable is to always stay in the process that is in the pages of our book. And I want to thank you all. It has been a wonderful evening, and we've been going 2 hours, so I guess we ought to close out. But we've got a real special way of closing out around here in Primary Purpose too. And you're welcome to unmute and join us if you do. We can't circle up like we do in bricks and mortar meetings. So we raise our hand in the screen, and it's just another way of connecting and being together. So after a moment of silence for those who are still sick and suffering and who are going to die of this disease tonight, please join me in the Lord's Prayer. Here's your moment. Thank you. And who will take us from shame to grace if we let him? Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. Thanks for staying up with us, folks. Thanks for being here, and please come back and join us again.